and welcome to Meet Our Ex's Success Stories podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Leah, and today we're listening to the diet success stories of a couple very special to me and many others. Individually and together, they are well-known and impactful in the fat-burning community. Tristan and Jessica Haggard, otherwise known as Primal Edge Health. Thank you so much for meeting with us, Tristan and Jessica.
Super honored to meet you. Thanks so much for having us on.
Thank you, Amanda. It's a real pleasure to meet you and be able to share a story today.
It's my pleasure, for real. So we'd love to hear all about before your way of eating. What health conditions did you have, and can you explain them to us a little bit?
Cool. I guess I'll start. So the first thing that got us interested in animal-based nutrition was actually neither one of our health. The thing that really catapulted us into this and got us making things like bone broth, got us looking at fat as kind of a medicinal food, was our daughter's teeth. So our daughter, who was conceived during an experimental phase, right after an experimental phase, we were eating mostly vegetarian. We had cheese and we're eating like a lot of plant-based foods, thinking that this was good for our health. We started messing around with this in about 2009. It's like 2009 to the beginning of 2011. We were eating not as much meat as we should have been eating. We thought this was a good idea. We ate some grass-fed beef. We would eat some, some good quality local meats and stuff. But we thought that perhaps plant-based is going to be healthier.
And we were going to farmers markets and getting everything local and organic, and it was very quote-unquote healthy.
Yeah, we were really into the idea of locally produced food. We didn't really like the whole big ag thing that we saw going on. We wanted to not be a part of that. So we started sourcing our food locally, and we weren't eating very much meat. So our daughter, she actually had dental caries.
She was a year and a half, this started. So she was still majority breastfed. I breastfed her for about 2.5 years, and she was eating maybe, fruits, avocados, things like that occasionally. But it was really shocking to see her a breastfed baby, and then we started seeing her teeth would chip away.
It's like chalk. Like it
was heartbreaking.
At one point we went to brush her teeth, and I could just see it coming off like chalk. It was horrible. It scared us so badly.
They would crumble in my hands.
Her teeth were crumbling. So we were obviously freaked out, and we came upon Weston A. Price's information. We came upon the information about fat being so important. So Weston Price, the Weston Price Foundation, they were very influential for us. So we started making bone broth. We started eating things like cod liver oil, and we started focusing really heavily on animal-based foods.
Including nose to tail at that time, too. That was what brought our attention to these ancestral foods such as liver, kidney,
And she loved kidney. Actually, Ari liked kidney before we ever really liked kidney. But so, yeah, that was a big eye-opener for us. Then we heard about ketogenic diets, right?
Well, and I'll just to close that topic up, the influence of the fat-soluble vitamins was phenomenal. Not only for my health postpartum, as a breastfeeding mom, first-time mother, I felt nourished, in a way that was totally different from anything I had experienced before. And also in specific attention to her dental caries, they did stop.
Yeah.
So
stopped in their tracks. Their teeth got hard.
They got hard. Yeah.
Now she's got her adult teeth coming in.
Her adult teeth came in beautifully. Yeah.
So that was pretty incredible. It was kind of almost miraculous in many ways, but we'd also read about other people having similar experiences. So we knew we weren't the only ones.
Actually, which was reassuring.
Yeah, and Weston Price wrote about in his book about actually reversing dental caries in loads of children. And our second kid, he had no issues with his teeth, no dental caries at all. And our daughter now has no issues with her teeth, big, beautiful adult teeth, super healthy, happy kids. So to us, that was the biggest success story. Yeah. And everything after that's kind of just like icing on the cake, or the low carb cake, or the steak. It's butter on the steak.
I bet that's perfect. So it's actually your daughter's teeth that brought you to the Weston Price research that had you find interesting. Great.
And then that led us to keto, which then led us to carnivore, right? So it was a slow crawl to keto.
We did keto 2013 to, you did it like 2017 or something. Yeah.
What convinced me about carnivore, so we were putting out information about keto for a long time, right?
And it was always very animal-based ketogenic diet.
Right. So our first book, The Ketogenic Edge, had a whole section on how to make organ meats and stuff like that. So that was we were one of the first books out there where we were talking about organs, which taught people how to make pemmican and stuff like that. And then what happened was we started hearing about carnivore, right? When I first heard about carnivore, it was, back in 2013, 14.
Yep.
And I thought,
with Andrew Scarborough, right?
All right. It was Andrew Scarborough. There were other people online too. So there were some zero carb forums, and I'd read about it, and I was like, this doesn't seem necessary. Like, it's just like, why? What's wrong with the vegetables? They're obviously good for you.
Yeah, obviously.
We all know, right? Because we're told that vegetables are good. So I didn't think it was necessary. I thought it was silly. Then I talked to this guy, Andrew Scarborough, who had a brain tumor, and he wasn't able to eat any vegetables. He had a brain tumor that was removed. It was an astrocytoma. He's a great one to interview. I don't know if you've done him yet. Andrew Scarborough. Andrew told me about his necessity. Like, it was necessary for him to eat a carnivore diet. And he was eating things like sweetbreads and eating nose to tail, eating a lot of these different parts of the animal that a lot of people don't focus on. And he was even eating crickets. He was even making cricket bread in like 2015 or something when I first interviewed him. So great guy, Andrew Scarborough, introduced me to the use of it for medicinal reasons, right? This was before paleomedicina started doing stuff. He just figured this out on his own from having to eliminate foods. He couldn't handle salicylates, oxalates, any of these plant foods. Couldn't deal with them. So I thought it wasn't necessary. But then more people started coming out and showing that they were getting really good results. And actually, I think Sean Baker might have been one of the guys who really convinced me, like, all right, look, this guy is highly athletic. He's getting great results. He doesn't even really necessarily probably need to do it for health, but he had some back pain that he was getting, and knee pain, and it went away.
Yeah, so we started hearing stories, not people with such extreme autoimmune conditions, but maybe more of like a normal category of person, but you eliminate the plants for a little bit and it just takes you to this next level. And for some people, it's a really subtle change, but in their specific life and context, it makes the world of difference.
So personally, me, like, I grew up with asthma, allergies, was diagnosed with scoliosis in 7th grade. I remember that happened.
So a lot of pain.
Back pain. Yeah. Like when we first got together, I had chronic pain because I had a major injury to my hip.
Which makes your mental state a little more challenging too, when you don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, frustrated and
frustrated, angry. It's like a very natural response.
So chronic pain, chronic inflammation. I kind of just felt deteriorating from the time I was like, when I was a teenager. My back pain. I remember when I did get X-rays from a chiropractor, there was some degeneration in some of the discs there, but I haven't had anything looked at since then. It was probably 2008 or 2009 when that happened. From after having a major injury, skateboarding, I got hit by a car. It was my fault, but like, I hit a car, and I had a lot of pain after that, and I started getting some digestive issues on and off, which I kind of had since I was a kid as well. Sometimes just kind of inflammatory, like IBD type stuff. IBS type symptoms, probably could have been diagnosed colitis at some point. There were even times when I was doing keto when I just found that I wasn't able to digest, especially the plant foods.
Yeah, there would be flare-ups. Yeah. For both of us, we've had chronic digestive system problems, both manifesting in different ways. Like, I would tend towards constipation, Tristan tends towards more looser stools. Yeah. But there's been phases for both of us and all these different types of diets where there's more acute reactions and then they kind of go away. And it's really hard when you're eating such a variety of things, a lot of things going in. Yeah. It's really hard to narrow it down and isolate the one cause, if there even is a cause. It could be like different ingredients in relation to the other, 1 + 1 equals like 3 in your body or something, if that makes sense, but it's not always a clear reaction. Yeah. So carnivore helped a lot. It is a really good reset.
Yeah, I ended up trying it almost out of necessity at one point when I was having just like a major digestive flare. My digestion was just off. Some sort of a bacterial infection, maybe. I mean, we live in the Andes. There are a lot of like amoebas and parasites that people deal with here. I don't know what was going on. I was never able to figure it out from testing, stool tests and stuff like that.
Which we did. We did try that. I mean, kind of like pushed out of necessity, it's like, well, something needs to change, right? So can the standard of care help us here, right? So we do some tests and you get results back. And then the prescription is
it's always just antibiotics and, it never does anything. So, eventually ended up to a point where at times I'm just eating meat because that's all I felt like I could digest. And
right.
Things got way better, right? So I started just eating meat. I've realized that if I stick to animal foods. My digestion is great, like 1 to 2 poops a day. The one wipe wonders, I call them, where you just like, you're not having to use half a roll of toilet paper every day. So it was cool. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think, as far as my health, the digestive health has been incredible. It's something that definitely, changed my life. And I no longer have to really think about what to eat. I know if I focus on animal foods, I'm not going to have issues. I'm not going to be stuck on the toilet all day randomly, not understanding what I ate that triggered it. And now I can eat. Actually, we have cows outside. You can see, let's see, they're actually hanging out. They're hanging out there. They're in the paddock next to the house. So we have raw dairy. Jessica doesn't do as much raw dairy as I do. Like, I do a lot of yogurt, yogurt, cheese. She does kefir.
Mm-hmm.
I drink raw milk. I can handle things like raw honey. So, since carnivore, digestion's improved dramatically. Back pain, virtually gone. Like, I used to get these spots in, I don't know, like kind of between my scapula, where I think it was an alignment thing. I don't know. I don't get it anymore. Whatever it was, I barely ever get back pain anymore. And so when I do, it usually is just from, blunt force, or I use it wrong.
I've experienced a similar decrease in inflammation, which helps my overall alignment. And these are kind of the subtle things for me that the diet has helped with so much. They're kind of problems I didn't even realize I had, because my body, it felt so normalized. But I was 29, I guess, when I started carnivore. And I remember commenting to Tristan in the very beginning, there was this low level of anxiety that I didn't even realize that I had, but it was this day-to-day like stress and anxiousness. And then I realized it was gone. And then I look back on a few weeks ago and it's like, wow, this is really different. It changes your perspective for me in that moment, like on the whole, do I even know my body? It's like, I think that I'm healthy. I don't think I have any problems, but there's kind of that thing you don't know until you try something, how it's going to affect you. That was a really big takeaway for me with the carnivore, for sure.
That's amazing. It sounds like you've both had so much healing, and your children, of course. It sounds amazing. And the carnivore calm you're speaking to, I think we've all appreciated that as well when we've gone to a meat-based diet and not knowing our own body. Everything you're speaking to, I think is excellent. So did you find any difficulties when making the transitions into carnivory or to a more heavily meat-based coming from
I thought I would specifically with the quote unquote lack of variety that people initially think, okay, so you're only going to eat meat. Okay. I didn't know how satiating it would be and how like deeply satisfying it is. And this, for those of you who don't know anything about me, even growing up, I've spent my life in the kitchen, like baking, making meat. I mean, I really it's a very expressive, artistic kind of form of creativity that I like doing. I've written multiple cookbooks, I do all the recipes on our website, and it's really fulfilling and I love it. And I thought I would miss that, but I feel like I'm just so much, in some ways, more inspired to make things because I know how good I feel after I eat them. And I
love it too. Like, our kids eat all our carnivore food, and then we'll make them make plantains. I can actually handle some plant food. Like, I can handle plantains. I can handle bananas. Every once in a while I'll try a bite of fruit that the kids are eating with no problem. I know if I eat wheat too much, like if I eat too many grains, like a couple meals with grains in it 2 days in a row, I'll feel bad. I've had white rice. I can do okay with white rice depending on the context and the time. So it's like, we can have more variety now, but I don't know. I don't care for it. Like, I know what my body needs. I know what it wants. So yeah, there's no real desire for other stuff.
It's interesting how my taste buds have changed too over time. I try things because I'm curious. I like to be able to identify the foods that I actually can handle.
She likes coffee.
I do like coffee. I started drinking coffee after I was carnivore, which is funny because a lot of people switch that. But I just really like it. I can go without,
She always liked coffee, but she started drinking it regularly a couple months ago.
But I feel like, I like it. I enjoy it. I like the taste. I get a little pick me up from it. But more importantly, I don't have any negative effects, right? So I think that's really important in this journey. It's not to only eat animal-based ingredients because you
It's
want
like
to.
It's like a dogma, like a religious thing.
Right.
It's just like, look, if you can handle some plant foods, no problem with it.
Yeah, you want to know what does well
them.
in your body and what you can actually thrive on. You know, so that's
so it's cool. Like she prepares like the food for the family. Real simple. Like me and her have been just eating burger patties with yogurt cheese that we make from the milk from our cows.
Which is it's just yogurt, and then you strain the whey out. So
we use these like heirloom cultures. So there's like 4 different cultures we use. There's really good cheese. You're downplaying it. I really like it.
I love the videos you guys make of this as well, by the way. It's been so nice seeing you in the videos, Jessica, and learning about the process you have going on. Just want to put that out there because I've learned so much.
Yeah, we got to do more. We got to do more. We got some more. We got footage from this week of like some of the things that have been going on, and yeah.
Well, it's really fun to teach people how easy this is, you know, because a lot of us, we just don't always think about what the possibilities are because we're taught, you know, certain things about food and then food preparation. So it's hard when you've been taught this certain box that exists and then everyone around you also acts in that box. It takes time, you know, and experimentation to step out, but it's really fun. Like we've done a lot of learning in it. And so it's really nice to have, I guess, a business really that we can use to share this information with other people because it's possible. I mean, for anybody can do it.
As far as you asked a question earlier about difficulties with transition from going from keto to carnivore, for me, I did notice that there was like an adaptation period, you know, even though I've been on keto for years, keto to carnivore, there was an adaptation period. Had kind of loose stools for a couple weeks, I think, and then normalized. And it's like my taste changed. I had to start flossing because, you know, I wasn't eating steak and just steak stuck in my teeth all the time. I don't have to floss as much anymore, but we do some ground beef now, and it's not always steaks. But yeah, I think
there's a mental element of it too. You know, it's just you're training yourself in a different way, and you're relating to your body in a different way, and it takes time to get used to it.
Just socially, I guess it can be funny sometimes. Like people ask you about it. If you're not comfortable telling them, like it can feel. But I think people learn to handle that really well, and a lot of people are more interested in it. As time goes by, people are realizing like what they're doing is not working. And if somebody asks you about your crazy diet, sometimes it ends up opening up doors for them. Like you can explain to them what you're doing. And then 3-4 months later, they're telling you, oh yeah, hey, by the way, now I'm doing carnivore. Like I had a lot of friends and family who like, we never pushed it on anybody, but they end up telling us, oh yeah, like we're doing it now. Like my parents ended up doing keto.
Yeah.
My mom.
Or they just start increasing the amount of animal foods and red meat specifically that they're eating, and they start feeling better. And
it replaces
that's what
other
it is.
foods.
It's like people have this intimate connection and experience, like an N=1, but they have it in their own life, and then they know. Yeah. And so it's like first they're seeing your changes and benefits, and then they're experiencing their own, and that's just like bouncing back and forth, and you have all of these reinforcing like positive feedback loops going on.
Yeah. And when your
really
kids,
exciting.
You know, it's cool with the kids too because they're so happy, they're so healthy. Not all that's just diet, but like we definitely. Diet does play an important part, and I think in you know, their behavior and their abilities to focus and listen. And
which they're still children here. Let's not mislead anybody.
yeah. They're still learning, but yeah, it's cool. Like they eat all our carnivore foods, plus they eat fruits and they have some starches and stuff.
So doing carnivore with a family, it is possible, right? It's not difficult. I would say it's easy. You know, you make all the meat for everybody. Everybody eats the meat. You steam vegetables, you roast vegetables, you bake vegetables, whatever it is.
Even vegetables, I think like starches and fruits. Like we don't care. Like, we don't give them greens or anything. We don't care about the greens. It's like starches, fruits. I don't think sugars are necessarily bad, right? Like white sugar, we don't give them white sugar, but like we'll give them, you know, plantains fried in tallow or butter. Yeah. And then we'll put like,
it's really good.
Yeah, it's really good. Like they love it. So stuff like that.
They eat a lot of
white
honey.
Carrots. They love parsnips. Honey. They eat honey and yogurt all day, every day. And fruit, you know, like fresh fruit. Like I don't think these are bad for kids. I think they're carbs are important for people who are trying to put on weight, because trying to put a kid on a 0-carb diet, it can be hard for them to gain weight if they're not hungry all the time. And I think you know, just finding what works for you in your context is what we're all about. Helping people find what works for them is what we've been doing. So we've been honored to be able to coach so many people, be able to help people get adapted to a more animal-based diet, whether it's fully carnivore or not.
Exactly.
It's not important to us. Like, we're not keeping score. It's not like you get, extra points if you're more pure on carnivore. We're not vegans. We don't care about that crap. It's like, what works for you? Are you no longer pooping 20 times a day? Great. Are you no longer only pooping 1 time a week and it's painful? Great. Like, whatever improvements you're getting, that's what we're going for. So I think, we feel real honored to be able to help people through it. And, for me, like, as far as like digestion, chronic pain, inflammation, never diagnosed with colitis, but there were definitely times where if I kept going down that road, I could have gotten that diagnosis, but I didn't want to stick myself into some of these, a box like that. And, so I think the most miraculous thing we've seen with it is our daughter's teeth, our daughter's health. We've seen other people turn around their mental health dramatically, turn around their physical health dramatically, and that's great. I think I'm more interested in other people's stories than I am in my own, but I have seen like a lot of really good changes in myself and my wife and in our family. And yeah, I think that's
your story is super interested, so I'm very intrigued by it. Thank you. And actually, I just want to ask another question about, you mentioned about, seeing how things feel and about certain plant foods that you can manage. Do you have any thoughts on supplements or other, ideas that the carnivore community considers when, or even, I know you have a farm, so you're doing nose to tail, and you have great recipes for nose to tail in your book, Jessica, and on the website, of course. Do you have any thoughts about that you want to share about the debates in the carnivore community around grass-fed, around supplementation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So like supplements, I think they have their place. I'm not like anti-supplement altogether. I don't think that there's like, everyone needs to take this supplement. If you don't take this supplement, you're going to die. There's nothing like that.
And there's nothing across the board that every single person needs to be supplementing with.
There's things that we keep in our medicine cabinet, right? Yeah. Like, clays, right? This is one thing a lot of people don't think about. Things like clay. You read like Weston Price's book, and he talks about things that these healthy populations ate before what he called the displacing foods of commerce came in, which are the white flour, the processed refined sugars, marmalades, jam, canned foods. Every single one of them had a place for eating clays, right? Especially here where there's heavy parasite loads, where people can get sour stomach from eating weird stuff, like clays, like bentonite clay, even diatomaceous earth. These are things we keep around. If I ever, like, my stomach starts getting sour, I'll have some bentonite clay, right? So it's like,
it's something that is actually good for detoxing, not in this like fanatical,
the word detox is terrible,
vegan,
right? But
kind of detox concept, but like if you have a stomach
activated
bug,
charcoal as well, right? So it's like if you've got a toxic load from bacterial dumping that's going on in your body, these things can help, right? So I think those are great.
Not to be used every day, but under acute circumstances, right? Like,
yeah, I'm trying to think of, I think iodine for a lot of people can be a thing. Here, iodine deficiencies are big. Something that's interesting when you start looking at, when you're raising animals and when you get involved in, animal foods, you realize that there are nutrient deficiencies in certain areas. There are a lot of nutrient deficiencies, like with things like sheep, goats, stuff like that. If you don't have iodine in their diet in areas like this, you have to supplement it. So here, what people used to do is they would trade for iodine-rich foods from the coast. And so I think in certain contexts, iodine can be useful.
And this we know from like Incan history, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you look at Inca history, like pre-Inca and the Inca civilization, they would bring in these eggs from this thing called an angelote. And there's like these little orange things that look kind of like a testicle almost. Like it's like the unfertilized egg from a skate-like creature, right? Like a manta ray type looking thing. And they would eat those, and those have a lot of iodine. They have a lot of fat-soluble vitamins too, but they were doing it for the iodine. So here, goiter is kind of common. Thyroid issues are common with people, and all the animals get supplemented with iodine. But all the people, they get fluoride put in their salt instead of iodine. So sodium fluoride's terrible, right? You need iodine to actually detoxify these halides and some of these metals that we can get built up in our body, things like pesticide exposure. So this stuff is real. So I think those things have their place, not for everybody, obviously, and you got to be careful when you supplement anything. I'm trying to think of other things that can be useful. Like I'm a fan of methylene blue. Like here's another, this is like a synthetic, right? Methylene blue has been used for, it's photosensitive, and it actually helps you to absorb, if you take something like, you take methylene blue and you use like red light or you get sunlight, it can actually help to increase mitochondrial respiration. So this can be important for people who have really, really low functioning immune systems. And in fact, now that we're, this whole Wuhan virus thing, there actually is a study. If you do a quick search, methylene blue coronavirus, there was a study that was published like 2 weeks ago about methylene blue combined with red light being used as a therapeutic to remove viral load and infection from the blood. So they were removing things like Ebola, with the Wuhan coronavirus and some other viruses from the blood using red light and methylene blue. So I'm not even against using synthetics when applicable, right? It's just really, it's all about what you need, what works in your situation. And so those are like a few things that I know we have in our medicine cabinet. I think Shilajit is another interesting thing that can be really good. It's like seeps out of the ground in between rocks. And it's very full of like humic acid and fulvic acid, which most of our soils are depleted in things like fulvic acid, humic acid. So these things are great. I think when you start, people who keep animals, ranchers, know that their animals need minerals, right? So they'll give them mineral buffets. If you got a bunch of cattle and you're doing regenerative ranching,
it's a very cool thing to see.
They'll have like all these troughs with different minerals in it, and the cows get to select which ones they want. So
and they
those
get
cows
to self-select, so they just go up and they lick whatever they want in the quantity that they want. It's
and they know,
cool.
So it's like women, when they're pregnant, cool. They start wanting to eat dirt and clay.
Right. It's called pica. It's this craving, this like ancestral. Oh,
pica's ice.
I
forget what it's called.
Anyway, there is a well-known thing where pregnant women, they crave, they just want to go eat dirt. Like why, right? It's because it's such a concentrated source of important
certain minerals, and it also binds up to other compounds in the body too. That there are things that the body's getting rid of, things that the body's craving. So I think supplements have their place, but they're not, there's no like, I'm not against supplements, but also I'm not I don't have any, like, I'm not a supplement salesman, right? Like Dr. Mercola, I'm not like that. Dr. Berg, some of these guys, nothing against them. They're doing their thing. They help some people, but I don't think everybody needs supplements. But there's some
interesting things out there. Yeah.
Like there's another what else? Like MSM, methylsulfonomethane, which is just organic sulfur. Mm-hmm. Sulfur is very used
throughout the body. I mean, hair, nail, and skin health.
Joint health.
People notice it's really good for that, but for digestive system also, it's really like soothing.
Yeah. Collagen can be useful. Some people supplement collagen, right? Instead of making broth, they supplement collagen. That can be good. So I think they have their place, but they're not absolutely necessary. As far as you mentioned, like grass-fed versus grain-fed, whereas, we know a lot of people who they've gotten their health back from eating grain-fed beef, right? Does that mean
Walmart beef?
Walmart beef, like they're standard. It's better than vegan, right? Yeah. I think as far as like the greater social implications, I think it's really important to support ranchers, support regenerative ranching, and get things directly from the producers, because they're getting ripped off. These ranchers sell their cattle for less and less every year, and the meat packers, these big four meat packers, they're making out with most of the profits. And they want to cut out the middleman and eventually get rid of the family ranchers, which they pretty much have in the U.S. Like the amount of cattle operations in the U.S. has dropped dramatically since the 90s, since NAFTA. And we see a lot of imported beef flooding the markets, right? Like, and some of these groups like the NCBA, who are supposedly there to help the ranchers out, the ranchers are starting to realize that they're paying taxes to these organizations like NCBA. And what they're doing is on the back end, they're lobbying to remove country of origin labels. So nobody's going to know if their beef comes from Brazil. No one's going to know if their beef comes from Australia, but the American consumer wants American beef. So I think local beef, supporting local farmers is really important. I think, regenerative agriculture is going to play a huge role in actually making our food system less fragile and our distribution of our food much less fragile. And I think, as far as people's health, sure, you can eat store-bought beef and probably be all right. Do I think it's the same nutritionally? Definitely not, right? I think the omega-3 to 6 ratio is important, even though there's not as much omega-3 and 6 in there. That's probably less important than the exposure to pesticides and stuff that the grain is exposed to. There's nothing wrong with feeding animals grain. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. We've done it for millennia.
Some people don't know this.
There's nothing wrong with feeding your cow corn.
Right.
But if you feed your cow nothing but corn for too long, it's going to become sick. Yeah. And then it's going to need more antibiotics. So you're going to have higher load of toxicity in the animal, but also the downstream effects of that is it creates, you're seeing dead zones in the ocean from pesticide runoff. We're seeing when you're eating a lot of the grain-fed beef, you are, where do the grains come from? There are GMO grains that are sprayed with glyphosate, which is really destructive to the environment and our soil and our gut health. So yeah, these things, sure, you're gonna be better off on grain-fed beef than on
Beyond Burgers.
Yeah, exactly.
Soy beef.
Right. But it's not much of a difference eating that grain-fed beef or eating a Beyond Burger as far as the long-term cultural implications go, because the same big money interests that are pushing Beyond Beef are invested in and producing the grains that are being fed to the beef, and they want to make it all done like that because they say it's more efficient. Another thing that we get told about grain-fed beef and why it's good, and this is, in my opinion, very poor argument, is they say, well, look, there's less cattle in the US now and more people are being fed with less cattle. Well, that's a talking point that's going towards the more efficiency thing, but that's not necessarily good, right? Less cows mean the cows are bigger, right? Those cows that are bigger are less efficient at converting feed. Those cows that are way bigger are also, in many cases, more damaging to the land, right? Because of the way that their hoofs imprint on the land.
Wow.
If you're really trying to regenerate the land, and you live in an area that's mountainous like us, you don't want as heavy of an animal, which is why sheep, goats, and stuff like that are really great, right? So it's like, we do want to think about these things. So including things like mutton, goats in your diet, homesteading. If you live in the mountains and it's not very flat, cows might not be the best.
Right.
Cows give great milk. They give great beef. They're so cool. I love cows. I wish I could have 1,000 of them. But here it's better for the land, and we can produce more food using things like sheep. So yeah, I think, and mutton's great. It tastes really good, and it's a really good quality fat, and they eat much less grain in general. So I think, people's choices do affect long-term health in our environments and our bodies and in our culture. So I think that's something to consider with grain-fed versus grass-fed. But I'm not going to hate somebody and tell somebody they're a terrible person if they won't, buy grass-fed beef. But I will tell them, hey, look into it. You probably can buy, if you buy a quarter of a cow from a local producer and you throw down with some friends, you're going to be able to probably get that just as cheap or cheaper than you will get, grain-fed beef from Costco, depending on the context. So look into it. Check out things like eatwild.com. There's really good resources there for finding locally produced meats. And so it's not about necessarily always about health for us. Sometimes it's about bigger picture stuff.
That's so well said. And how you speak to the big picture, again, has impacted positively so many of us in this community and probably far beyond. So thank you for, yet again, in this interview, dropping so much knowledge, great resources that we can check out, but also for sharing your personal story, both of you. It's so inspiring how you are, how you have been, how you took control of your family's health and your own health, and how you're inspiring all of us. Thank you again so much for meeting with us, Tristan and Jessica.
It's been an honor.
Yeah, seriously, our pleasure.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. So stay safe and healthy and keep it up, please.
Awesome. Yeah, keep doing what you're doing. We really appreciate you having us on. You guys can find more at primaledgehealth.com, and maybe check out Jessica's book, the Carnivore Cookbook. It's called Zero Carb Recipes for people who really love animals. And we have a lot of really good resources in the book, teach you how to prepare nose to tail carnivore foods, and we include a lot of stuff, including storable foods like pemmican. So yeah, check that one out.
It's self-published, so it's on our website.
Yeah, not on Amazon, only on our website. But I think Amazon might end up owning all of the internet soon. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be on Amazon later.
That's great. And it's a wonderful book, and you've got amazing recipes, and everybody should check it out. And we'll look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Yes,
Awesome.
I would like to stay in touch. Thank you, Amanda.
Take care.